getting that diagnosis, there's this pretty universal experience where you have a period of grieving for that younger you. I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
You've just got me.
I think that's something people really don't understand about ADHD, and I didn't understand at the time. The depth that you feel your feelings, honestly, like debilitating sometimes. What people don't realise is God mode is the first warning sign of burnout. Like burnout is literally just around the corner. With neurodivergent brains, we'll internalise a lot of that hyperactivity and it becomes anxiety or perfectionism, and that is so much more damaging. I was in my childhood bed for like 8 weeks with my parents on suicide watch. It was so difficult, and all I wanted to do was just feel better again so that I could get back to work and run myself into the ground again.
Hello and welcome back to the She Who Dares Wins podcast, and my guest today is Amanda Perry. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you. Barrage of the questions that's going to come. But the first one is She Who Dares Wins. Can you tell me how you've dared and won?
Oh, I mean, I don't know that I so much won. I won in a roundabout way. So one of the biggest dares, risks I ever took was the day that I quit my corporate job to start a business, which I can't believe was 17 years ago. It was in 2007, 2008. So the day that I quit my very stable, reliable, well-paying job in corporate land was the day that they were queuing around the block at Northern Rock to take all their money out during the 2007 crash. And I knew what I was going to do that day, and I woke up and saw it on the news and I was like, that's weird, isn't it? Why are they all doing that? Off to work I go, have my notice in, do all that. My mum and dad were like, are you actually sure? Like, are you sure this is a good thing? Yeah, it's fine. Anyway, it was fine. Worked out great, worked out brilliant for the first 7 years. Actually, probably the first 5 years. Let's say the first 5 years were absolutely brilliant.
What did you quit for?
So I started, my first business was, it feels so weird saying this now, but it was a cupcake business, which I have to say, anyone listening, in 2007, that was still cool. Like,
I think it's cool now.
it was new, it was cool.
Uh-huh.
I remember everyone saying, oh, are you a big Sex and the City fan? I was like, oh no, I've never watched it, why? And apparently that's well, I know now that's where the cupcakes came from, but... So yeah, I had a cupcake business. I had like 7 shops, 70 plus staff in the end. Well, in the middle.
Yeah.
And then, so my businesses have this habit of doing this and going doing this quite quickly and then kind of doing that quite slowly. Okay. And that did that very quickly and then that very slowly and with a couple of kind of peaks along the way. And I ended up bankrupt from that. So did I win? Not in the traditional sense. I definitely dared. And there were some huge wins along the way. And I think the long-term win is that I just learned so much, But obviously no one starts a pink cupcake business with the thought that they would end up personally bankrupt from it. It was a horrific experience that was 10 years ago now, and honestly the ripples are still felt today. It's not
really?
Yeah, it's not I think it's really easy for people to look from the outside when someone does something like that or has to do something like that and assume that it's a kind of calculated or I don't give a fuck kind of move, and it's not that. It's truly, truly devastating to the person who has to go through it. And yeah, they might have to put on a front of like, I'm fine, I'm okay, maybe even, well, no, not I don't care, but I'm fine. But that, in my personal experience, couldn't be further from the truth. It's really deeply, deeply affecting, yeah.
How do you come back from something like that then? So it's a passion, you built it to an amazing established business. like emotionally, how do you come back from that to go again? Because you've been successful in many situations since.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. It takes a
Just
while.
whittle through,
It takes a while. I mean, I can only speak for me personally. I'm sure there's some people for whom it is a calculated move, and it is we've got to this position and now we need to go bankrupt again to start afresh, or, you know, whatever that might be. Certainly it's different in America. For me, it was personally, and bearing in mind, so I didn't have my ADHD diagnosis then. And the day, I mean, there was so many moments of just, I'm in Sheffield, and the local press, anywhere, I think local press are known for this, particularly when you're a woman, they love to like build you up. And I had these amazing, I was like front page, and bearing in mind, let's just go back to 2007, business wasn't like it is now. People weren't just like starting businesses the way that we do now.
Right.
It was quite a thing, you know, that a woman by herself. I remember people always asking me if it was like, if I had a rich husband, or if it was my dad, or, you know, who was kind of funding this. Yeah. So it was a really different landscape. So I had a lot of press attention locally. And then as soon as things started to go bad, I also had a lot of press attention, and not
So they
nice,
jumped on there.
Yeah. I think I had like 12 articles about the kind of the demise. And, you know, every time you're just stuck with like scrolling through the comments and reading these things about yourself that you're like, but that's not true, that's not what happened. But also not really in a position to tell the truth, because to be honest, you don't necessarily know what the truth is. Everything's just such a mess when you're going through something like that. So it took me a long time, I would say. When I talked to my husband about it, we were together then. He's my husband now, miraculously. I honestly don't know how that happened. I don't remember much about that time at all. He says that there was, you know, weeks where I just wouldn't get out of bed, and I was certainly, you know, suicidal. Really, really difficult. And I guess a lot of people might listen to that and go, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, that's so dramatic. Perhaps it is. Maybe you should be able to be less emotional about something like that. But I think that's something people really don't understand about ADHD, and I didn't understand at the time, was the power of like rejection sensitivity dysphoria, and the depth that you feel your feelings is just honestly like debilitating sometimes. And when I finally got my diagnosis, looking back at that whole time through that lens was just the biggest, the biggest light bulb, but also the biggest kind of explainer of what I went through, and allowed me to have so much acceptance and compassion for myself, even though there was things that happened during that time that I deeply, deeply regret. And the way I handled things, and the only way I could handle things at the time, you know, I handled things in the best way I could, but there are still some things that I deeply regret. And that's really difficult, but applying that kind of ADHD lens to it gives me a different understanding of the situation. Yeah,
it's super interesting. Like as a business owner, the passion and fear for what you have of losing it is immense.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine, what you went through.
Yeah.
And then looking back on that, like you say, and just being like, okay, well, it's almost like another layer, isn't it? Like a heightened, you know, normal business owners. My dad owns a business, and a very successful business that he sold last year. And he's just so like, you know, through, and I'm like, how, what, like, how is this? And I almost put it down to like, it's got to be a guy woman thing. Like women were too emotional. We get too into like, oh, my business, you know, this and that. And we get too involved and we can't make good decisions. And actually it's not a man and woman thing. It's just, it's a personality. It's how you're built. That is really interesting. When were you diagnosed with ADHD then?
In 2020. So like,
quite recent,
lockdown.
really.
Yeah, really recent. Yeah. And even then, I think the funny thing is that, you know, we're talking 4 years ago. Sorry. Talking 4 years ago. And it took me at least a year to talk about it openly. It took me a long time. I had a marketing agency at the time. And I just remember kind of really wrangling with my feelings around, I don't want people thinking that I'm talking about it for sympathy. That was a huge thing then, which isn't really a thing now. B, like, what will my clients think? What will the team think? Will it affect the business in a people kind of not trusting me way, you know, clients not wanting to work with us anymore or whatever that might be. It took me, a good year. And then I wrote this article on Medium to kind of share with the world.
What, like not your name? Or?
Yeah. I used my name.
Okay.
But I did this Instagram post that was like, there's something I need to tell you. ...
I love that.
And people like loved it. But the reason I'm saying this is because, you know, now people are like, oh, I got an ADHD diagnosis this morning, or just hi guys, just after my ADHD diagnosis. And it's like brilliant because it is so accepted and we're so aware, and it's so like cool. I don't mean cool as in it's cool to have it. Like we're so cool about it. Even 4 years ago, it was something that you really had to, or I felt that I had to really consider and be very kind of measured about, and how am I going to do this, and how will it affect things? And I think that's really interesting to see how far it's come in that really relatively short period of time.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this. So I think like you're only aware when you start looking into things. Probably up until, I don't know, I think maybe last year when I was reading into it and just going light bulb moment. I was just like, ADHD is little boys who run around, are really aggressive, really busy, can't concentrate. And then started reading into it and was like, oh, in young girls, when they go into themselves and they can't, you know, almost halve the ability of what they can do, and they start dream. And I was like, oh my God, like I all my old reports were coming back to me from school. Like I got moved into like a private school, like all these things that happened. And I was just like, what? And it was only like I was chatting to you about a friend of mine at school who was really open about her diagnosis, and then going online and seeing other people, I was like, oh, it's not naughty little boys.
Yeah.
Like it affects so many.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that we're getting to a point now with that. But you were really in that time zone where that really didn't exist. Did it exist much on social media?
There was like pockets of people talking about it. So when I got my diagnosis, me and two other members of my family got a diagnosis as well. And so that had all started with, you know, one of us like sharing a meme in a group chat and being like, oh yeah, that's definitely you, but I also really like recognize that. And, you know, like everyone does, like, oh, have you seen this? Some more serious stuff, some more. And like my sister saying, oh, like this explains so much about you, about like managing finances and attention to detail, and, you know, all this stuff that honestly, it really wasn't that long ago that my sister and her husband are both teachers, and it wasn't that long ago, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was talking to my sister's husband saying, do you have many kids with like ADHD? Like, is it a real thing? Or, you know, is it just too much video games? And is it just because the world's so fast now? And, you know, I don't think I even believed that it existed in little boys. I just thought like, well, little boys are just naughty, aren't they? They just do like roll around the floor and stick scissors in plug sockets. And, you know, it's only when, you really start digging into it and understanding about the socialization of girls and how we are, you know, taught to be good girls from such a young age and taught to socialize so differently and grow up so much faster and, you know, not display those kind of naughty traits that girls with ADHD or with neurodivergent brains will internalize a lot of that hyperactivity, and it becomes anxiety or perfectionism or, you know, all of these traits that we have that isn't outward facing hyperactivity, but we keep it all inside, and that is so much more damaging.
I was going to say, it's actually like things you can see, you can almost deal with, but the underbelly of just the suppression, like I didn't speak to anyone but I meet people now and they're like, this doesn't make sense. You didn't speak to anyone like until you were like 18. I was incredibly shy to a point where my parents were like, there's a problem here. Oh, wow. Like just so painfully shy. And internally I wasn't shy, as in I'd got all these things going on, and it really hits hard now to think that there are so many other women and girls that have gone through that and may not be at a point of knowing. For you, when you obviously extremely high achiever in that business, and then obviously with your agency, then once you got your diagnosis, I know now you help people with ADHD, runs business. I had a call with a mentor who was like, if you do have ADHD, this was like a few years ago, it's an absolute superpower. And I was like, it is. It's a massive superpower. We know it is, but it's also like, it's also so really hard to deal with. What then took you on your journey, and what did you change how your outlook changed towards the businesses you'd run? Like what then, like I said, shifted? That really was the shift. Like when I look at my business journey and think about pre-diagnosis and post-diagnosis, pre-diagnosis, I was just on a mission to be successful and to achieve whatever I believed that looked like in terms of, you know, the outwardly successful traits of the lifestyle and the offices and the awards and the people, the team, all of that stuff. And even before I knew, you know, it was killing me. Even in my first business, kind of having all of that stuff around me, the overheads and the people and the noise and the, you know, processes and all of that stuff was so difficult to manage. And I ran myself into the ground like time and time again trying to manage it. There was one period in my first business where I was in my childhood bed for like 8 weeks with my parents on suicide watch. Like literally it was so difficult, and all I wanted to do was just feel better again so that I could get back to work and run myself into the ground again. You know, mad, isn't it?
That's all I wanted, because I was like, this isn't me. You know, I need to be like strong. I need to be successful. And as soon as I got that diagnosis, maybe not as soon as, but the year following that was such a period of like unpeeling the onion, you know, just peeling back the layers of, hang on a minute, this has all been a trauma response to being told I was lazy or not trustworthy, or I'll say one thing and do another, or flaky, or, you know, full of dreams, or whatever those. There's a stat that by the age of 12, neurodivergent kids hear 20,000 more negative messages than neurotypical kids. Shit. And you think what that does to you, you know, and by the time you get your report, you know what that report's going to say. You know, it's going to, or like, Amanda would be, could be so successful if only, you know, if only she paid attention, if only, And so getting that diagnosis, there's this pretty universal experience where you just have a year or you have a period of grieving for that younger you. And that, even though we know, you know, I was born in the very late 70s. God, that sounds so awful, doesn't it? You know, my parents couldn't have known, like no one knew. So ADHD was only diagnosable in the year 2000 and for adults in 2008. So we forget that it's such a recent thing. Like there's no way our parents could have known when we were kids, but that doesn't change the fact that our lives could have been so different if someone had recognised something, you know. I was taken to the doctors when I was 12 and he diagnosed me with depression because there was, I don't know how old you are, but there was this...
I'm 40 in about 2 weeks.
Okay, you might remember this. There was the Zeebrugge ferry disaster. So there was this ferry, and bearing in mind, every holiday we would go on, we'd go to France, so we'd always go on the ferry. And there was this ferry disaster where they hadn't closed, I'm sorry if I'm getting this wrong, but what I remember is the door hadn't closed properly.
I do remember it.
With the cars, where the cars go in. And so it had let in water and it sank and all these people had died. And I was absolutely distraught. Like I couldn't sleep. I was just watching it on the news. It's all I was talking about. My mum and dad took me to the doctors and they were like, "Man, I don't like, this isn't right, is it?" You know, she's just, and even I was telling the doctor, I was just crying. And so he diagnosed me with depression. That was kind of the first of many things that I look back on now and just think, and of course he couldn't have said, "Oh, it's ADHD," you know, she'd like that just wouldn't have happened then. But if it had, my life would have been so different, you know, and that trauma response that I went into through my business of, I'm going to fucking prove myself. Like, I don't really know who I'm proving myself to, but it's to the teachers and to, you know, all of these people that have ever doubted me, and to even family members that I've been the butt of jokes, and, you know, I'm going to prove myself. And I think when you get that diagnosis, that's the kind of unlocking the valve of just being able to take that deep breath and say, I haven't got anything to prove. I just haven't got anything to prove anymore. You know, this is, if anything, I need to prove to myself that I can put myself first and look after myself in the way that, I don't know why I'm getting emotional.
You've just got me. You've just got me, because I was just, that's the first time someone said that, is like the why. You've really got me, because like all these things that I do that people are like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I think secretly it is from that childhood that was like not told they couldn't do it. My parents have always been amazing and that you can do whatever you want, but like not feeling like you have the skill set to do it, and that still lives on. And I don't think I'd probably come to that as to the why, like having, you know, doing the businesses that I've done and going to, like, I left uni and I was like, I didn't like talk to anyone. I was quite sociable through uni, but I was like, I'm going to be a Hollywood actress. And I fucked off to Los Angeles.
Did you?
Yeah, I fucked off to Los Angeles. My boyfriend at the time, who I'm now married to, again, don't know how. I was like, and he's like, you've just done a geography degree. Where's this come from? And I was like, I'm going to LA. Like, I'll come back to you, obviously. He was starting a PhD. And I was just in Los Angeles and I was like, I am going to get signed up by an agency. I'm going to be in a Hollywood movie. And then when that didn't happen after 2 months, I was like, fuck them. I went home.
You don't deserve me anyway.
Yeah, you did. Like,
you've missed out.
Yeah, you missed out, motherfuckers. Like, I read about Charlize Theron getting picked up, and I was just like, they're going to pick up this Birmingham girl, and she's just going to fly. And like, I look back now, and I'm thinking, these big things I've done, why?
That is so funny you say that. I was talking to someone about this recently. I put a post on Instagram yesterday or the day before saying about, like, one of the hardest things about ADHD is that we have this thing inside us, or many of us do, or certainly my experience and clearly yours, of I can do this like huge thing, but the reality of achieving it is just out of our reach, and that's really hard. And I remember seeing a billboard, and it was Jim Carrey, and it must have been one of the oh my God, what was this film? What was
The Mask, or
no, the
Ace Ventura?
Yeah, Ace
Right,
Ventura.
okay.
I remember seeing that and thinking, I can do that.
I
can
with
be,
me to
I don't know
Hollywood.
why it was specifically that billboard.
Okay.
And even when I think about it now, I get that like, oh shit, like I can still do that, you know, I can. and yeah, it's true. You have these, and it was such a vivid thing for me. And I must have been pretty young when that happened, but I was like, I can do that. Like and even now, we're so deluded. People with ADHD are generally so deluded. We're like, yeah, I'll give it a go. Like, you know, I could imagine being that person on a plane where they're like, is there a doctor on the plane? No one. I'll give it a go. I don't know. I've got Google. I'll work it out. You know, we are literally, and that is why we, you know, it's like the chicken and egg thing, isn't it? Of why are so many founders ADHD, or why are so many entrepreneurs ADHD? Which generally because A, we're completely deluded and have these huge visions, and B, because we don't like being told what to do, and the, you know, general corporate kind of employment life just doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we are absolutely deluded. But to go back to your question, I am trying to stay on track here.
That's fine. It wouldn't be anything else to be.
So what changed after the diagnosis was that year was about, peeling back the onion layers, applying radical self-compassion, which I still have to remind myself to do. It's not a natural thing. I'm 46, you know, I've a lifetime of not being compassionate to myself, putting myself last, making sure that everyone else is all right around me. That year was, something has to change here. How am I going to change it? So it took me 18 months, but I sold the agency. I realised, you know, every business that I'd gone through, I thought I'd learnt lessons from, but actually I just got back into the same position again, because again, that trauma response, that drive for, you know, praise, or drive for recognition, or drive for proving myself to whoever, this imaginary they, led me back to the same position time and time again. And this time, it's the diagnosis that broke that. It's the diagnosis that said, you can't work with a team. Like, this just doesn't work. I can't work with people. Generally, I work with people now, but on a very different basis. You don't need the accolades, you don't need the office, you don't need the overheads, you don't need any of that. I need a life. So I call it a brain first life. So in any opportunity that comes along, any idea I have, any like side quest, squirrel hunt that comes along to me, I put my brain first, as in, what do I need right now? Like, what does my nervous system need? What does my lifestyle allow me to do? And what are my actual strengths? Not the things that people say, oh, you're so good at this, you're so good at that. And it's like, you know, you're so good at networking. No, I'm just really highly fucking masked. And when I get home, I'm going to be on a pile in the floor and can't speak to anyone for 3 days, you know, not literally.
Yeah,
but you know
but I know what you mean. Yeah.
So, what are my true strengths? And then I've just, over the last 2 years, just played to those and just built a business. And this isn't, you know, the end of it. There are still things that I want to do, but we adopted my son last year. So my life's just completely changed over the last year. And again, that's, you know, maybe that allows me to be a bit less brain first, because I have to be more him first. My husband looks after, you have to take 12 months adoption leave. He took the 12 months. I've worked the whole way through. But you know, when I say work, I have an office at the end of the garden. I'm in there probably 3 hours a day. The rest of the day, I'm in with my son or out doing things with him. And that to me is a life, you know, that to me is a brain first business, or a business that is part of your life, isn't something that you have to put your life on hold for, which was certainly the businesses I'd had before, hence having a child at 45, you know, I literally put my life on hold. And I don't regret that, because if I hadn't done that, it wouldn't have been my son.
Right,
but
yeah.
there's, you know, there's a reason God didn't plan for us to have toddlers and perimenopause at the same time.
I didn't get that
There
notebook.
is literally a reason why that is not meant to happen.
So I've got a 6 and a 3-year-old, and I'm definitely going through peri at the moment, and then obviously a business that's in a startup stage.
And ADHD, it's fucking brilliant, isn't it?
It's like,
it's so much fun.
Yeah,
it's just like
fucking wild.
Thanks God.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And meanwhile, our husbands are just like,
What the fuck?
basically like still 30.
Yeah.
And just thinking, you know, what's next? Oh, let's go and do this. Yeah, shall we? Yeah, great. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, let's do that.
I similar to you in that, when I know this is one thing, like quite a few friends that suffer from ADHD will be struggling with, and I've just now started to look into it, is the effect with perimenopausal. I didn't even think that it might heighten it, or you know, it's two things that are basically attacking you from one.
Yeah.
You know, and then also like motherhood. Like I in my 20s, I was like, I don't want kids. I want to be this big CEO. I want to be running, you know, or in Hollywood, whatever. And then becoming a mom changes you, but you also have to deal with ADHD as a parent.
Yeah.
In terms of, I really don't think either of my boys have any kind of traits for ADHD. But me personally, because I think that's sometimes that's something you've forgotten, is the mom, is I struggle to. I've always played my whole life, like played and done cool stuff. Like I go out and, like last week I was supposed to be learning how to skateboard. Like I'm that fun, but then when it comes to kids, like I really struggle to sit and play. And then and I'm like, this is not the mom I envisioned.
Yeah.
Or like with my second Teddy, Tom, I noticed in his contract that he was allowed to take 3 months off full pay from he's at the university. He has huge holidays anyway, and I was like, oh, you can take. He was like, yeah, I'll take 3 months off. Like he does pretty much all the drop-offs and pick-ups for school. Takes, you know, school holidays, long time, and it's working and it works for me. But I think if I was in a relationship where I was with, say, a business owner who was going in 7 till 7, I'd be 6 feet under now.
Oh, I say this to my husband every day. I just, as much as there's been moments for us where I'm like, I want to be doing that, you know, I want to be the full-time mum. I want to be like with him all the time, taking him to groups and whatever else. I couldn't do it.
No.
I couldn't do it. I you know, I have him, that's, you know, I'm with him most Fridays.
Same here, yeah.
By the end of, like, it gets to lunchtime and I'm like, I'm just going to pop to the office and just check my emails, you know, just like half an hour, just.
And has that been hard acceptance or?
It's been a really hard acceptance, yeah, and it's really tough. And I've spoken to a lot of people who have had the same experience. It's funny because it's not funny at all. It's interesting because I put a lot of this down to the fact that my son's adopted. So I always think that because I don't have the, you know, didn't go through the pregnancy and therefore didn't have the kind of mum brain, like baby brain and all of that stuff. I think when you go through adoption, it is quite isolating anyway. Either you tell yourself or you feel like you're made to feel like not quite a proper mum. And added to that, we went through So there's two ways to adopt, just very briefly. One is the kind of traditional route, and one is early permanence. So if the child is very likely to go on to be adopted, if they believe that it's heavily weighted in adoption rather than it will go back to birth parents, then they try and go down the early permanence route, so that rather than going from perhaps multiple foster carers, but certainly a foster carer to then adoptive parents, they try and minimize the move. So it'll go straight to, our son did end up going to foster care from hospital, and we had him from 3 months just because that's how it worked out. And in that time, so it's meant to be a 6-month period. Ours ended up being nearly a year, but in that time, you're essentially a foster carer for that child. There's a huge amount of uncertainty as to whether you will become their parent. You have to facilitate contact with birth family. You have to take them to a centre for contact with birth family. It's an incredibly traumatic time for everyone involved. It's a really, really difficult time. So much uncertainty. It's like a full-time job, kind of keeping on top of the visits and the paperwork and the admin side of adoption. So I think going through that period and having to be a secret mum, like I couldn't talk about any of this publicly.
Yeah.
I wasn't his mum. You're not allowed to call yourself a mum or dad. You're essentially a foster carer. That went on for, well, we only had our final ceremony about 3 weeks ago. But before that it is adoption. I think our adoption order was granted in, I'll completely lose track. It was about May time. Our adoption order was granted. Yeah, it was May. But so we had a year, May last year to May this year, of uncertainty. And as the process goes on, you have a little bit more certainty, but it's too big a thing. I know people who've had children placed for 18 months and then they've been rehabilitated with birth because it's not necessarily, we're going off on a tangent here, it's not necessarily birth parents. It's if someone else comes along from that family that is that is the right thing for the child to be put back into that biological environment. So that is incredibly difficult to process. And then I think going from secret mum to now I'm your mum, and now we're a family and we can talk about it. And because it's adoption, there's always an element of secrecy. I would never post photos of him online or anything like that, out of respect for his, amazing birth parents. But I think all of that adds up to a very kind of dysphoric experience of what it's like to be a mum. I feel like a mum in the sense of, I just love him so much and want to be with him and do the best for him and can't wait for our future together. But I don't feel that identity of being a mum. And so when people say to me about, being a mum and you lose your identity and stuff, I'm like, like, I just don't really feel like that. And I think that's contributing to that and also the fact that, I had 3 months off, and I've worked all the way through and my husband's kind of taken on that role. So, I don't know. It's a funny one. I don't know.
Yeah, I wondered actually if it's like, I don't really feel like I lost my identity either. But maybe that's just because, similar to you, I carried on doing the things that I wanted that make me. Yeah. And in a real, I beat myself up thinking it's a selfish thing. Yeah. Like, well, why do I get to go and do whatever it is that I want to do? And a lot of mums, like, I keep quiet when we go out for drinking and there's moaning about husbands. Yeah. I keep quiet because I'm like, and people know, and they're like, you are the man in this relationship because you don't cook tea, you don't know, I don't do any of the emails for school. Like I was sat here the other week and I had a phone call. Are you coming to collect your son? Like, fuck. And my husband's, I knew you would, I knew the one time I knew
Oh, no.
So I wondered if it actually is, it's interesting because we're both different stories, but whether it's like the work, not losing your identity because you carry on with the work. I don't know. It's it's hard to see.
I mean, everyone's situation's different, isn't it? It's not, it's not a mum off, is it? I think, and no disrespect to anyone, but I honestly wouldn't want to be someone whose identity is completely wrapped
Just
up
mum.
in being a mum.
I
don't want to be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be that. I don't think. I think that is unhealthy in a lot of other ways. So I don't know. And in terms of how ADHD plays into that, obviously with it not being a biological birth, in a lot of ways I don't have to look out for, is he displaying traits of ADHD? But as anyone who's been through adoption will tell you, there's a whole other set of, when there's a whole other set of things that you do have to kind of filter for and watch out for. So there's I'm definitely, that high alert kind of anxious mum who's like, oh, he's doing it, like he's just started banging his head, and I'm like, it's autism. That's definitely oh my god, it's autism. So you do have to.
Yeah, I have so much admiration, respect for you. My husband does his area of research. He's looked after kids, and we've got friends who have adopted, and like you say, that I cannot get over the process. I mean, that's a whole other podcast, but I have so much admiration for, like, he reads me stories of research and people he's met, and I'm just like, oh my God, like, you're literally, it's just amazing.
Do you know what? It changed my life. I'm going to get emotional again, but it is the most incredible, and I know this isn't everyone's experience, but it's the most incredible, magical, life-changing. Like, once you understand the amount of people, and I know the system is broken and it's underfunded, and there are many, many holes that these poor kids can fall through. But once you understand the network of people that are involved in keeping this one child safe and how far-reaching that is, it's just, when I look at my son and just think, what could have happened if he'd fallen through the cracks, and all of these other kids, it's an incredible experience. And we were actually fortunate enough we had a meeting with the birth parents. We got to meet them, which is pretty rare. Like, people do it, but and that was just the most incredible experience, and I had so much empathy for them the whole way through. It's really, really tough, really tough. And I wish more people understood, like, how just understood more about the process and just how incredible it is, and how it's not, well, these people don't deserve them, or they're taken off them for a reason. Yeah, they are taken off them for a reason, but it's, trauma is a cycle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even the situations where it looks like, well, you made your decision and this is the consequences, it's never, or it's rarely a conscious decision, is it? I think it's, I wish more people understood about adoption. It's the most incredible experience. It really is life-changing.
Do you think, like, I guess going nicely back to that first question, do you think that's your biggest, I know you're not at the start of the journey, but do you think that is your biggest dared and won? Like, would you take that over all the business stuff?
Oh, 100%, 1,000,000%. I'll take it. And,
I think it is. That's why I wanted to, like, I think that is incredible. like hands down.
Yeah. I mean, he is just the most, there's just magic in him, you know, and when you looking at the whole experience that we've had from, it was nearly 4 years for us end to end, which is really long, and that's for many reasons. I decided to throw a grenade in it halfway through by saying, "Oh, we're going to sell the house," and our social worker was like,
Nope.
"Okay, but you know that means we have to go on pause." All right, okay.
Shit.
So yeah, we had a few stop starts, but it's such a long period of your life, and so much of that is about. And I think, you know, ADHD does come into this because I would be in rooms with these people. There's a lot of like, you know, workshops and learning and kind of courses you have to go on. And I'd be in rooms with these people and we'd be watching videos of, you know, specific case studies or whatever. And I'd just be like bawling my eyes out at the thought of like the empathy that I had for these women. There's some incredible initiatives. There's one I'm in Sheffield, but there's this initiative in Rotherham, which is all around supporting the birth mothers. It's called Pause, and it's around supporting them to not rush straight back into pregnancy, because this is a huge issue in adoption.
Where lots of siblings are born.
Yeah.
And then the siblings need to go with.
Because you know, there's many reasons. There are many varied reasons, but generally, you know, they want a baby that they can keep, so they keep going. And so there's this incredible service in Rotherham, and there's a few around the country where they'll support them to, you know, heal from their trauma of the past, heal from the trauma of having the baby removed, really dig into their lives, find some passion and some hobbies, and really, really, really support, like true, like one-on-one support to get them to change their lives and to value themselves and understand their worth. And I was just sat in this room like bawling my eyes out, looking around, assuming everyone else was, and people were just kind of watching it, or, you know. And I think that empathy piece for me from the beginning, and listen, I went into this thinking, you know, like, let's save one of these children, like these people don't deserve them, very much of this attitude of, and I have to be careful who I speak to about it, because a lot of people still have this attitude, and it just, I can't handle it, of, you know, this kind of them and us kind of thing. And then you see the particular stories and you understand more about these people, and, you know, getting to meet our son's birth parents was just the most humbling, emotional kind of, I had so much respect for them turning up to that room. Can you even imagine?
I couldn't.
Can you even imagine? Yeah. Just sat across, and you can't help but be aware of the kind of the context and the story between you, you know, and it was just incredible that they could turn up that day. Incredible the things that they asked us to make sure he knows when he's older, and it was just a really. I'm such a huge advocate of adoption, and I know there's many stories that haven't been as successful as ours, but I think it's and there is a huge amount of ADHD women who go on to adopt, and I would love to know, I'm going to dig deeper into it, because I'd love to know the reason why, whether it's, I feel like many of us are focused on our careers and maybe leave it a bit too late, or that we do have this huge kind of empathy and drive to, you know, change the world and do good in our own little way, which is kind of support, you know, giving these incredible kids a second chance. But yeah, there's a huge amount of people I know in the adoption community who are older ADHD women.
It's fascinating, isn't
it?
Really there is
interesting.
Probably that whole we love helping people and not saving. That's like a really bad way of putting it, but and it ties definitely into that. And that's
Yeah.
like an amazing thing, isn't it? There's no negative side to that at
No,
all. Like
no.
that is the super, like there are these little superpower bits that come
Yeah.
off from it. And that is one of them.
Yeah.
It's an incredible journey. And I think, like you say, with, you know, it's not just the effect that you're having on that child, it's so often the people that I guess are sometimes forgotten, which is the parents that give them up, and then what they've been through.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a symbol for adoption, which I'm sure you know if your husband works in it, but it's a triangle with a heart, like the other way. So it's like a star, but a triangle and a heart. And it's not, sorry, it's a triangle with a heart inside it. And the triangle is like the 3 points of adoption, which is the birth parents, the child, and the adoptive parents.
Okay.
And I think people really misunderstand, you know, and think that adoption is about, oh, they're mine now, like, you know, we're off over here. It's not. Like, our story couldn't exist without them.
Yeah.
You know, it just couldn't. And you hear, we're in a position where, you know, we could get a call at any time to say that there's a sibling, our child has a sibling, and would we be able to take that child on? And unfortunately, you hear many people in that position say, oh, we really hope they're going to have a second one. Really, like, these people aren't surrogates.
No.
You know, they're not
It's heartbreaking
a chamber
for them to go
for
through
you
it.
to birth a child through.
Yeah.
Like, it's a very... I think it really shows your character going through something like this, and how you then act. I mean, you would not get through the process if you were the kind of person that was just like, I just want a kid. Like, give me a kid. Where can I get a kid from? You know, you just wouldn't get through the process. It is grueling, absolutely grueling. No stone is left unturned, but... I think it's a real test of your character getting through it, and how you know, one of the things that people don't understand or don't know about is that part of almost all adoption orders, part of the agreement is that you send a letter every year until the child's 18 to, it's called letterbox contact. And our first one's due in September, and it's something that when I first heard about it, I was just horrified. I just couldn't believe that you would, you know, have this yearly reminder that there's someone else kind of involved, and someone else out there wishing that he wasn't with you and he was with them. And that's just not how I feel now. I think because we did have that opportunity to meet them, and it was just very civil and nice, and we laughed and we cried, and it was just a really wonderful experience. I'm actually, in a very strange way, and maybe a selfish way actually, I'm actually looking forward to being able to send them the letter and tell them the things that he's been able to do that I know they wanted him to do. You know, it's not from we've done all this amazing stuff, rubbing their face in it. It comes from, you know, they have particular things that they said, oh, we really want him to know about this, and they love Harry Potter, and, you know, we want to be able to tell him the things that we've done.
Oh, that's so... Oh, you're getting me. That's definitely your dad and one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it probably is.
And you helping people as transformed as well into business. You're now an ADHD coach and passionate about helping others.
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of empathy there. Does that feed back to you like more than it does, you know, running a business and making financial gains, like your ability to help others? Because the one thing that I would take away from your story is, you know, you were a success. You have been a success on many occasions. And I think there's a lot of us that are on the journey that think we've got these great ideas, but it's going to be impossible for us to get there. You've blueprinted that, and now you're giving back by helping others. How's that journey been for you?
Yeah, it's been great. I think it is possible. I think it's possible for anyone to have that success. And what my mission is now is to help people have that success in a way that works for them. So it's not that you're driven to have someone else's success. You know, what does that success look like to you in a way that you can be there for your boys and have the life that you want to have? And, you know, so many of us say our goals are, you'll hear it a lot online, like, I want to hit these 10K months or 20K months, 30K months. Why? You know, like, is that actually your goal, or is it something that you've picked up from someone else saying it, or just the fact that last month you did 5K, so now you think that the next milestone has to be 10K? Like, it's not 10K, but why is it 10K, and what is that going to give you? Because if hitting 10K months is the thing that's going to allow you to spend more time with your kids or travel or do whatever you're trying to achieve, that's the goal. The cash isn't the goal, you know. The goal is the thing that cash is going to allow you to do. Yeah. And so that's what I work with people on now. Like, what is the goal? What's the real goal? And how can we get there in a way that just isn't going to burn you out? Because people we like bully ourselves into success. You know, I'm so stupid. Why can't I do this? Why everyone else can do it? Look at them. They're doing it. You don't know their story. You don't know how many people they have around them. You don't know their neurotype or their strengths, or, you know, coming back to the superpower thing, I'm medicated. When I'm medicated, everything about ADHD is a superpower to me. But when I'm not medicated, and actually looking back, pre-diagnosis, every 1 point of superpower was 2 points of just depletion and burnout, and, you know, the price that you pay for having those superpowers. And I don't know if you experience this. Some people do, some people don't. If you ever experience God mode, which is just like, give me more, like I can take it all on. You know, I'll start my podcast, I'll start a blog, I'm going to do this project, I'm buying 10 domain names, I'm doing all this stuff. And then people think like, oh, I'm in God mode, I love it. What people don't realize is God mode is the first warning sign of burnout. Like, burnout is literally just around the corner. And so understanding things like that and knowing that if you're in God mode, just tempering that a little bit, and don't start the podcast, for Christ's sake.
Where were you like 2 years ago? Because I was in God mode with 3 businesses, neither one of them, they were all making money, but like running like an absolute shit show. Yeah. I went through a load of health issues, was getting tested left, right and centre, in and out of hospital. I was convinced I was dying. Oh, God. Ended up in A&E. And I was like, I've got heart palpitations. I'd been on an ECG in A&E, and I said to that, like, and he was like, okay, tell me about yourself. And I was like, okay, I got 2 kids under 3. Like, one was born during COVID. He was like, what do you do? I was like, well, I've got a construction business where I work 3 or 4 days a week. Then I go home and I do my clothing line. And then I'm working on this. And he was like, and you've got 2 kids at home. And he was like, I think you're stressed. And I walked out of that hospital and I was like, I'm not stressed because I can fucking do everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it.
And I should be able to do it all.
Yeah.
Like, because everyone else can do it. Like, the Kardashians can do it all. Of course I can do it all.
I was like, throw me another kid. Let's get pregnant again. Throw me another kid.
Literally.
Let's start another business.
Yeah, literally.
That's so, like, that one piece there, like, you've just put that into massive context.
Yeah. And so if we know that, when we go into these God modes, and I love God mode, like I do, and I talk about it online, and it triggers me because people will say, that's not ADHD, that's bipolar, that's manic depression, that sounds like a manic episode. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. But it's not. People who experience it, no, it's not. I mean, yes, it is some kind of mania, as in you feel completely invincible. You feel like, just give me more, you know? I can't wait to get to my desk. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing a bit of this, a bit of that, a bit of this. I'm not actually doing anything very well, but I'm like, I am like shooting those shots. You know, I'm like super mum. I'm on it. I'm absolutely on it. But I have to now I have to understand that during those periods, I know that the more I take on, the worse the burnout's going to be. And so I have to, every time something comes to me that I'm like, oh my God, that's so exciting. Yeah, of course I need that domain name, or of course I need that new Instagram account. I know that, of course, I don't need that, because everything I take on now I'm going to pay for next week or the week after. So yeah, understanding things like that, and helping people to find the thing with ADHD, and I guess the hard thing about my job, and the hard thing about kind of marketing what I do, which I luckily don't really have to do, but the hard thing about kind of talking about it is I can't say to people, come to me and we're going to go through this 3-step plan of, you know, we're going to look at this and then this and then this, because that works in neurotypical business. That does work. You know, we've all signed up to things. We've all bought courses, done group programs where it's like, oh, I'm going to learn this, and that, like, to achieve this, you have to do this, this, and this.
The set business plan.
The set business plan. Yeah. Neurotypical business.
Never done one.
Business standards are neurotypical business standards.
Right.
Like, this is, I'm writing a book at the moment. That's the premise of the whole thing.
Okay.
And how we need to change that to work for us. So we sign up to these things where people are going, you can achieve this, and it's really easy. You just have to do these 3 things or these 4 things, and I'm going to do them with you. And we start them, and it's not long before we're in that position where we're like, but everyone else seems to be doing this and get this, and why am I the only one? And now I'm behind, and I don't know what I'm doing. And everyone else is neurotypical. Like, let's, you know, it's not you, it's them. So the thing that I have to do is really quickly get to where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what is it about you that we have to understand to build that strategy and build that journey in a way that is actually going to work for you? And the red herring in all of this is always that the people I work with are generally so high masking that they will say, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, that works. It makes it, because it makes sense. It makes sense what we're saying. And then it doesn't happen. So it's this constant kind of going back to, right, let's have a look at what bit there didn't work. Like, you're going to have to be really honest with me. What bit there didn't work? So it's kind of, oh, sorry, I just said
you're
that.
fine.
It's kind of unpicking them as well as their business.
I was going to say, like, there's a little bit of, it's not therapy, but there's a deep dive into a hard look at themselves.
Yeah, a really honest look at yourself. And if you can't be honest, because where that manifests in our businesses is generally that we go back to the Jim Carrey billboard of like, I can see this thing and I can achieve it. And we kind of see point A and point Z, but because of like executive function and time blindness and all that stuff, we don't really see what's in the middle. So like, you'll look at an ADHD to-do list and it'll be, you know, reply to my emails and like create some content and blah, 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 and book a holiday, and then find a house, like move house, and, you know, find a husband. Like, these used to be on my to-do list, you know. I would have these, it would go from these kind of micro tasks up to these huge life, you know, retire at 55. Like,
I'm hiding my notebook.
But we literally do that. And we're not very good at kind of separating the tasks from the goals. Mm-hmm. And so that's a huge thing that I have to do with people is like, look at that thing on your to-do list and can you tick that off? You know, can you like the classic ADHD thing, look at any ADHD's to-do list or in their brain, one of their tasks coming up is redo website. Like, we're permanently redoing our website. We think that that's the answer to absolutely fucking everything. And so people are redoing their website, but they're not write a new about page or collect images for website or collect new assets or speak to designer or decide on colors or branding or whatever. It's just redo website. And so this task never gets done because you come to it and you're like, oh, I've got an hour. I've set aside an hour for this task of like redo my whole fucking website. You know?
Did you go on my website because it is down because I redo my website?
We're all in a permanent state of redoing our website. And that is like, what does that even mean? That could mean anything from just like, you know, adding a new offer or product to redoing the whole website. New template, new like branding, you know, we're looking through Canva. Oh yeah, I like that. I like those. Oh no, I like those colors. Oh, actually, I love that font. You know, it's just never ending. We can't, and we kind of have to play into that. Like we have to keep that variety in our businesses somehow, but without just being this chaotic kind of technicolor dreamcoat of permanently redoing their website or permanently going round and round in circles of feeling like we're not achieving anything because our expectations are just so overinflated, or our to-do list is full of impossible tasks that we can never get done in the time we've allocated. So it's a real I guess it's a real journey of understanding yourself and being really, really honest. I have a lot of calls with clients where they cry, and that's, you know, never easy. And I usually end up crying as well because we stumble across these like huge revelations that one little question and it can take you somewhere. And I'm definitely not a therapist. I never veer into that territory. Although, you know, a lot of this stuff is life stuff. Yeah. And one question can veer into this territory of this kind of huge light bulb moment that changes the whole trajectory of their business or how they see their business. And it's kind of a shock to you both. So there's a lot of times where we will both be in tears because their understanding of themselves, I also see like reflected in myself as well. You know, it's something that I've felt before. And I think it's the same as, you know, when a mum's talking to a mum or, you know, an adopter's talking to an adopter. When ADHD people are talking, you have this shared understanding, don't you, of what that process feels like and how othering it can feel to not have that understanding.
And I think you do that. Like I am, like your Instagram just has me laughing. Like it's the three-prong, like laughing, crying, and then going, oh no, oh fuck,
that's me.
That's me. But it's so good because I think in a world where everything online is like, you know, you can have $1 million clothing brand in a year and you can blow up and you can like all this, and it's not great for, you know, people that get sucked into that, which is commonly me. And then the feelings of like feeling overwhelmed, whereas your brutal honesty but with a good sense of humor as well has just like totally nailed it on that platform. And I think you were saying that you're not quite sure like how many people really, you know, get much from it. You could see like in the comments, I was reading one you put out, I think it was yesterday, and the comments were like, yeah, hear you, and then someone asking about perimenopausal, and it's just like, yes, it's that your awakening has so much potential and is doing so much for other people.
It's been amazing. It has been amazing. You know, when I first started sharing, when I sold the agency, or maybe a bit before I sold it actually, I'd kind of got to the point online, I'd grown to maybe like 15k or something, 16k. But I was just so bored of talking about marketing. I just wasn't interested in it anymore. And I think I think a lot of that was actually demand avoidance, because that's kind of what I had to talk about to keep the business going and to, you know, pay the team and all of that stuff. I think that really fed into demand avoidance. Once I got my diagnosis And then certainly once I decided to sell the agency and that pressure was off of, you know, I have to be this person to keep the agency going. And I thought, what do I want to talk about now? And what I really wanted to talk about at that time was being an ADHD business owner and how hard it is and how we don't understand how different it is running a business as a person with ADHD compared to a neurotypical person, and how the business advice and the business standards out there are meant for neurotypical people. You know, it's a very linear kind of, like you say about your dad, you know, it's you start your business and it goes like that, and it goes probably like that forever, you know, until you sell, and then you go on. Like, businesses can't handle emotion. They just can't. They need
or founders
cash in,
like,
cash out. Yeah, exactly. They can't handle it, which is why, you know, a brain first business for me is a business that is built uniquely around you, that can handle that, because it has to handle that, because otherwise all we're doing is buying the domain name, setting up the Instagram account, starting the businesses, realizing that we're not going to achieve our dreams of being the Hollywood actress, whatever, starting the £1 million clothing line, unless we have the people around us. There is a huge caveat to this, that is, you know, there are some incredibly successful business owners with ADHD who have the right people around them.
But you have to get to that point, don't you? Like, there's this interim period if you're a startup that doesn't have huge funds to employ people. I think, for me anyway, that period, like, that's the one thing that previous mentor said to me, was like, you get people to fill your gaps. I understand that, but in those first 12, 24, 36 months, it's all on you. And I think that's the make or break. Is that something that you find with your business owners?
I think that you either you either have that or you don't. And what I mean by that is, so I'm thinking of one of my friends who is incredibly successful, and she runs her business with her partner. And so that's like a pre-built team. And then there's, you know, not everyone could run their business with their partner. I couldn't. Me and my husband worked together in all of our businesses, but we couldn't work together in the same way that they work together to kind of really go after this dream. And so I think that there's that. I also think there's a huge amount of people with ADHD who just aren't able to work with people. One of the things I've realized since my diagnosis is that I find it incredibly difficult and energy expensive to communicate. And I don't really mean in this setting. I mean in, like, in a business setting where everything's in my head, I find it really exhausting to communicate that to other people.
Yeah.
Like, all I've ever dreamt of is a team of mind readers. Like, if I didn't have to communicate anything. And that's my personal flaw, you know, and that's something that's taken me a long time to understand, and a lot of kind of heartache for myself and the people around me, unfortunately. But it's something that you have to realize. So if you are that person, you're probably not going to find the team of people that are going to work with you, because it's not going to work for you or them. Maybe you'll strike lucky and find the right people. But I think if you're in a situation where it can be your partner, or even, I've seen it work well with, like, friends. I don't know, it can go badly wrong, but, you know, I have seen it work. So yeah, I think it is possible to achieve those dreams, but I think more often than not, we have to be realistic about what those dreams are. And I will say this, I've gone from a marketing agency turning over millions with a team of up to 40 at one point, to working by myself, working 3 or 4 hours a day, and at home I have, like, a remote VA who does a few hours a week for me, and a couple of people that I'll kind of pull in for projects. I'm forgetting about, and I have an app with a co-founder, but we've worked together for a long time. My kind of core business, and I'm making more money now, personal money, than I ever did. So I think people think that there's a sacrifice. You have to sacrifice your goals to have a brain first business or to have a business that works for you. They don't often understand the business of business and the cost of business. The cost that comes with growing a business can be crippling to a business. You know, the cost of scaling a business, or not even scaling, just starting, growing, getting an office, getting people, compared to a business that could be much more suited to you, that is working by yourself, you know, finding work that truly lights you up, that is putting good back into the world, that is helping other people to put good back into the world, can also be far more lucrative, or can hit your goals much quicker than building this thing that you think is what success looks like.
Yeah. You might have hit a nerve there. I think it's incredible. I really want to thank you today for coming and chat with me. Your story is amazing. You've definitely dared and won. And I'm excited to see where this journey goes. I know there's an app coming to help ADHDers out there. What you do on social media is incredible for just lighting people's day and just feeling heard.
Thank you.
It's amazing, and yeah, thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks for asking me along. I've enjoyed it, and I'm sorry for crying.
No, that's absolutely fine.